So the subject on the board for this evening was declare playing trumps. Now I appreciate this is a massive subject because it's more than 50% of the time when you're declaring it will be a trump contract, I think. I don't actually know how the odds work out. And it's also a subject that we have looked at lots because it is such a big subject. So it is, if you like, quite revisory, but it's sort of a technique of what to do before you actually play a card. Now when I very, very first heard of bridge, when I was 7 or 8, my mum, I remember her saying it at the bridge table all the time, arch, she kept saying, A-R-C-H, arch, 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 and she kept saying to my dad, have you arched? Now I had no idea what that meant, but I've since learned that arch, if you care, stands for, A stands for analyse, is it that? How can I spell analyse?
That's it.
Is it that? That's weird. My brain just died there for a second. Review. Count. How. Now some of them are commands, some of them are nouns, so it doesn't quite perfectly stand. So what this arch stands for is analyse the bidding. Sorry. Hang on, I've got to remember it. God, I've forgotten it. That's not very good, is it? Oh, that's right. I got it. So, try again. So, arch stands for analyse the lead. The opponents have made an opening lead. So you want to get into the mindset of what were they trying to achieve with that opening lead? Why have they made that opening lead? And you might start to suspect things like, that's a singleton, that's top of a sequence, what are they trying to do? They've led a trump, what are they up to? They've not, they've led an ace, what does that promise? That kind of stuff. If you analyse the lead, you get a lot of information into their mindset, assuming they have some idea of what they're doing. If they're just being random, you can't analyse because they're just being random. Review the bidding. Have the opponents bid. So, if the opponents have bid something along the way, that gives you a weighted statistic. So if you have sort of a priori statistics, it means we don't know anything, we just got to guess what the odds are, 50-50 finesse kind of thing. If you have a bid somewhere, it weights the statistics one way or the other. If someone makes a weak bid, they're less likely to have things. If someone shows an opening hand, they're more likely to have things, for example. Count the points. Again, this sort of ties quite nicely into review the bidding. You count your points up and add them, and then you know how many the opponents have. If one of them's bid, you know how the points are distributed. If neither of them have bid, then you just know how many points you are missing as a total. And then how. How are you going to play it? So that is what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to focus on this element here, is the how. But I just thought it was a good acronym to tell you, if you force yourself to do it, because it's quite laborious, if they led something like, I don't know, the King of Diamonds, and you're playing from this hand, let's say, you would just play a small diamond. We all know we're going to play a small diamond. There is no choice. Legally, you have to play that small diamond. But if you force yourself to do something before playing any cards, it's quite a good habit to force yourself into. Because it makes you do things, and it stops you from being lazy and just playing 3 or 4 tricks and then going, oh, I wish I had trumps and I wish I hadn't drawn them, or vice versa. So it's good to try and force yourself into this thing. Now, honestly speaking, I don't do this, like, rigorously, but I sort of do it generally. I tend to think about the hand as a general. So I tend to do these very quickly, but to begin with, you have to force yourself into doing step by step. Okay? It's just a good thing to do. It's up to you. You don't have to if you don't want to. But what I'm going to focus on is how. How am I going to play this? Now, when we're playing in no trumps, you tend to look for your long suit and you chase your extra tricks. So you're looking for where your winners are coming from, where your tricks are being generated. In trump contracts, I tend to find dealing with your losers is an easier way of dealing with it, because hopefully you have less losers than winners, so you have less of a task to overcome. And secondly, it lets you focus in on where it is you should be hitting, if you like, where you should be focusing your efforts. So what I tend to do before is I combine the assets of my hand and dummy's hand. And I just think, where are my losers? Can I do anything about them? Now there are some times where you have a loser and that is life. Like you're missing an ace, for example. So in this instance, the ace of clubs is a loser. It's very, very unlikely you're going to be able to do anything about that loser. They might have even led it. So there are some losers you don't need to worry about, inevitable losers. And what that does is it stops you from worrying about those things. There are some losers you can do things with. You can finesse, you can trump, and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to look into that. But if you combine the assets of the 2 hands and look at which card's worrying you, can I do anything about them? You'll tend to find it focuses your energy where you should be focused. So, if you look at this little hand, which we've had some time to study, we're in some number of spades, I'm not particularly worried about the contracts, just that spades are trumps. Now, when you are playing in match-pointed pairs, which is what we all typically play, I scored better than you, you want to go the most tricks as possible. So it doesn't really actually matter the number, if we're in 1 spade or 4 spades or 7 spades, you want to get as many tricks as possible, nearly always. So therefore, it's still always a good idea to go for maximum. So you don't need to think, oh, I need to get 10 to make 4 spades. If you've already got 10, you want to go for 11 or 12 or 13. Greed really is the key here. So don't think, I've made my contract, I can forget about it, can we? Because it's not just making contracts. So first of all, let's go on each suit. And let's count how many potential losers we have. Now on potential losers, what I mean is, tricks we won't necessarily, losers we may win. Obviously that's what potential means. What I mean is I'm assuming it's the worst case scenario. So I'm not assuming they never take their ace of clubs or the king of spades finesse works. I'm going to assume the worst case scenario. Okay? So how many potential losers do you think we have in the spade suit?
One.
The king.
One, the king. We're not particularly worried about their 9-8 or whatever it is they've got. Okay? How many potential losers, again combining assets, do we have in hands?
One.
Two. Isn't it?
One.
That's a king 9x.
Oh, where are we, boy?
That's a king 9x. I appreciate my life with these. We've only one because the king deals with one of these. And then you've got one left. Yeah? Happy with that?
Oh, right.
Yeah? Diamonds, how many potential losers do we have?
3.
In this hand, but in this hand,
One.
2.
the ace will deal with this. So how many diamonds are we going to lose in this hand?
Oh,
None. Now I appreciate that it's a little bit complicated because you're thinking, well, what am I going to do with all these? What this does is it focuses you in on one hand's losers. As long as one hand's got no losers left, your hand is good. You don't have to worry about all those pesky diamonds over there. So it gets you to focus. So here, we don't have any diamond losers because the ace deals with our singleton and we will trump any subsequent diamonds. That doesn't mean we're going to choose to trump subsequent diamonds, but we can do, so we won't lose any diamonds unnecessarily. So we have 0 diamond losers. Yes, there are a lot of epoxy diamonds over here, but we don't worry about that because it's this hand that we're considering. It will nearly always be easier to count your losers in your own hand because you have the long trump suit. Not always, though. I'll come to an example in a minute. And how many losers do we have in clubs? 2, potentially 3, if things don't go nicely. If they lead a club through our queen, if they lead a club from this side, let's say they play a club to the king and a club back, or some other club to the ace and a club back, we might have 3. So there are 3 potential losers. So I'm going to count 3, because again I'm assuming the worst case, so that we know where to focus.